Hey, y'all, this is Shane Sams. Thank you so much for listening to my podcast today. I really do appreciate it every time you tune in and every time you give these podcasts a share. I've got a great guest for you today. He's one of the best entrepreneurs I've ever met. His name is Kirk Du Plessis. He is the founder of OptionAlpha.com. Now, I first met Kirk at a live event. We went out. We were at a live event. It was Podcast Movement, which is one of the best live events you can go to if you're an entrepreneur. Period. It's one of the best events out there. And we were down like in the basement. I was there was somebody doing a presentation, but it wasn't really related to what I was doing. So I said, hey, I'm going to go to the best place at any conference, and that's out in the hall where people are walking around so you can meet new people. I love to meet new people, right? And I was standing there, and Kirk and his wife came up, and they had heard about our podcast. They had heard our story over on Pat Flynn, the Smart Passive Income podcast. We got to talking, and we kind of connected on Facebook, and we just kind of followed each other around online, kind of looked at what each other were doing over the years as we went along. And I got to have a front row seat as Kirk built this incredible brand called Option Alpha. They do a lot of stuff in the stock market trading and investment space. Really cool brand. Started out as just a little blog that nobody was reading but his grandmama, and it's turned into this amazing industry changing business. Just an awesome thing. He's got a lot of stuff going on over at Option Alpha, and he really has done it all. He's done everything from blogging to podcasting. He's got YouTube channels, creating content, creating courses, creating coaching programs, creating software programs. Kirk and his team just do an amazing job as entrepreneurs, and they're truly a great role model for anybody that's wanting to take their online dream, take their entrepreneur dream, take their business online or off to the next level. So it is with great pleasure I bring you Kirk Du Plessis today on the Shane Sams Show. We're going to talk all about content creation and how content is the ultimate driver in everything you do. I don't care if you're going to be an author, an expert, an entrepreneur. I don't care if you're going to build software programs. Content is what is moving businesses forward right now in the world. We're going to talk about level ups. We're going to talk about how you can go to the next level. You know, it's not enough to go level 1, level 2, level 3. We want exponential growth. We want to go 2, 4, 16. How do you make those big leaps? What can anybody do right now where they are to take their game up a notch and get to where they want to be faster? And then we're going to talk a little bit about life-work balance, not just from the standpoint of your calendar and your weekly agenda and your time, but how do you actually use your time? How do you use it to build things that you want to build in this one life you have? How do you use that process to be a great example for your kids so that they can see you doing things and get inspired to do things in their life as well? How do you really have it all? How do you have the successful business? How do you have the successful brand? How do you build the things you want to build, live your dreams, and keep that great marriage and keep being a great example for those kids? So we run the gamut on this episode of the Shane Sams Show. Kirk's one of my old buddies, man. So we're just sitting back, relaxing, and having a good time. And that's what I want you to do wherever you are listening to the podcast today. Maybe you're in the car on your commute. Maybe you're down at the coffee shop. Wherever you are, turn that volume up, kick back, and enjoy the show. Listen, I'm high as a kite right now because I just watched the Stranger Things finale. So I'm coming in this hot. I'm just warning you, man. I'm pretty high right now.
And I've never seen any of it, so now I got to go back and see it.
You got to go. You got to sit your wife down and just say, look, here's what we're doing for the next 30 days. Every night, we're just going to go down this rabbit hole.
Just be done. Yeah.
Just binge it and be done. I don't like to. Do you like to binge? I like to binge, but I like one a day, and I just binge for like the whole month. I don't like to sit down for like 12 hours and watch a show.
First of all, there's no way I could do that. So I have 3 kids, and it's like 8, 6, and 4. So there's no way I could even sit for 20 minutes. So I usually binge for 15 to 20 minutes at night before I pass out on the couch. And it's
exactly.
So my seasons last months long as a parent now.
That's kind of good though. That's kind of, especially when you get a season that you know is ending. Like, if you know it's got an ending, you can take your time. You're going to get there eventually. And I get freaked out when shows are still going. Like, and I'm like sitting on the cliffhanger trying to figure out what to do next. That just bothers my brain.
But now they started releasing shows like on a schedule again. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like, you conditioned us to binge it. And now you're releasing it back on a schedule.
Business wise, what happened was Netflix got us hooked on binging. And they kept, and every month they were releasing a show you could binge. And then Disney Plus comes along and starts doing it again, like serial. Like, you got to wait a week. You're waiting a week before you know if Loki gets killed or the Mandalorian his spaceship gets blown up, right? So now, then all of a sudden everybody switches over and Netflix is like, oh, wait a minute. if it's a 7-week series, they've got to pay for 2 months. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that Netflix was worse than Stranger Things though. Here's what they did this time. They dropped 3/4 of the season and then held the finale until the next month. I mean, come on, dude.
So smart.
Obvious. It's obvious what they're doing, but we all just hook, line, and sinker it, man. Yeah. Do you remember? I was thinking back the other day when me and you met, and like we were just like kind of new entrepreneur-ish online.
I remember like vividly. I know where we were at. We were in Charlotte at Podcast Movement, and I think we were like in a basement like conference room or something like that. It was like it wasn't even that big of an event at the time, you know?
No, so, it was just a little thing. And the only reason I went is because John Lee Dumas was like speaking at the event, and he was doing like a party for his, like, he had just launched his Podcaster's Paradise or something, one of his products. And he was like, there's this cool thing called Podcast Movement. It's all podcasters. You should come up here. It's all podcasters. And I'm like, let's go and see what happens. But do you ever look back? We'll get to where we are today, but like, you ever look back at that and like think that, man, I had no clue what was actually possible?
Always, man. I feel like I hope that I even look back like now and say like, man, I had no clue what was possible. But like this all started. I mean, it really, for me, like my side all started because my wife told me to go to Pat Flynn's event in San Diego. You guys went to the first one. We went to the set just not knowing, but like I went to the second one with our buddy Cole. You've met Cole, right?
Oh yeah.
Podcast. And
did you meet Cole there? Did you know Cole? He's been on the podcast too before. Did you meet him or did you go with him?
So I met Cole after the second event or third event, something like that. And then we ended up running into each other at another event, but now we're, good buddies and friends. And, but yeah, it's crazy. It's just like, but all that was possible because I walked into our bedroom one day and my wife said, she was like, I booked this ticket for you to this event. You're going to go. You should do it. You should be serious about this. Like, I think there's something here. Had she never done that, I mean,
was the blog already, was Option Alpha already up?
It was like a hobby. It was like I was writing for myself as a hobby. She probably read it and my grandma, and that was it.
And somebody that it was probably like you're looking at it and there's like 20 viewers maybe, but it was like half of them typed in alpha and we're looking for like bench workouts.
I know, right? it was all my grandma on like different IP addresses or something. She's just trying to make it feel good,
Oh, that's amazing, dude. It's so funny, man. People don't listen to me when I tell them this. Every single person that I know that is successful, is an entrepreneur, has done a big thing, like a really big thing. Things that are, I would say that you can't realize is even possible until you get to a certain level. Everyone has done that. Everyone has said, sooner or later, I've got to get on a plane. I got to go get coaching. I got to go talk to somebody that's been where I want to be. Maybe not where I'm going to go, but they at least got to be at the next gas station where I'm going to. And they've done it and they've gotten out and it's so completely unknown when you do it. But until you do that, we're always surrounded by the people around us. And it's impossible to even think what's possible until you go to that room with 10 strangers and Pat Flynn and another guy. And then you're just like, holy crap, there's a real world out here,
It's just that whole idea of like the collective mindset of like the people that you surround yourself with. You just end up, I mean, like you want to be the stupidest person in the room.
Yeah.
It's like if you're the stupidest person in the room, if you are the least successful person in the room, you personally are in the right room. If you're the most successful person in the room, you're 100% in the wrong room.
Yeah, you need a brand new room.
Yeah, you can't learn anything, or just like it's bananas. You
need people also too to say, what I loved about the one day BB that I went to. Was Ducker at yours? Was Chris Ducker at yours too, or just Pat?
Yep.
What I loved about it was I was from the football coaching world, and I was the coordinator or the head coach my whole career. So like I was always in charge. I immediately walked in that room, and there was a guy with people with authority that were like, "No, you can't do that." Like, it's like they knew it was people that could tell me no. It was people that could say, stop, listen, I'm more experienced than you. This is ridiculous. What are you doing? Right. And like having that perspective is what I really value in my life more than anything right now, especially as we're constantly trying to level up. And the leveling up doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It goes 1, 2, 5, 10.
Jumps.
Right. It jumps and it goes fast. And like, that's what I'm constantly trying to do now is look for people who have so much weight behind their words that they're around me, so much authority, whether it's my coach for, I've got mentors for parenting. I've got mentors for marriage. I've got mentors for business. Like I want that kind of people in my life too now. It's not just that they have the knowledge I need, but I respect them so much I can listen to them and say yes or no.
I think what it comes down to, and something I've learned, like just, I guess with time and experience going through a lot of stuff, is like, you think that you're working on your business thing, which is your car, your metaphor is a car, right? And you're working on your car and you want your car to go as fast as possible, but you got to build the road at the same time, like, I mean, seriously.
Good point. Got to pour the asphalt as you go, man.
You don't know like the things that are 2 miles down the road. And like, so something that I've like tried to take out of anybody who's like mentoring, coaching, whatever. It's like, I want to like try to figure out like, what do I need to build ahead? Like, what's the road going to be like ahead so I can prepare now? Like if the road is going to be bumpy, maybe I should make some changes now before I get there and my car starts falling apart,
Yeah.
And so like, you have to think about, and I think that's what doing, like being around like people who are, different levels and even like completely different industries. Like it never has to be the same industry. I mean, like you hear it, and I say, because I just like, me and like you go into a room and you have 100 people talking or 50 people or 10 people, it doesn't matter. And they're all in different industries. You hear the same thing over and over again. Like it's a very similar like song between
path. It's not magic.
It's not magic. It's like very simple recipes, very simple ideas, simple fixes, they're just hard to implement. So yeah.
The level ups when you see other industries too are crazy because, well, hold on, let's back up a little bit. So we both started out like basically as like freaking bloggers, like just writing, the simplest of websites. You get the WordPress, you release the article, you try to get someone's email, like you sell a course, and that's what it was. Like you started Option Alpha out, you were just creating content. Like when did it shift to you into like that level up? That's like not just, oh wow, someone gave me money for something I made, to, or someone's reading my blog, to, hey, I can scale this if I offer coaching, if I build a community, if I do all these things around it. Like what was that level up? Because I see a lot of people too, they start their blog and they just are like, cool, I'm making enough money that I don't have to work for anybody else. But like what was your shift from going to, hey, let's try, we found the first level, let's go to the third level and see how that ends up?
I don't know if it was like a particular thing necessarily, or the fact that you just like at that point, and this is like, was it like almost like 12 plus years ago now, like at that point you started to see that like content was driving businesses.
Yeah.
Like we were just, I mean, like how do we even start this? Like we literally started this talking about Netflix. We didn't talk about Netflix, like their pricing model and like how they do their distribution. Like we talked about the content that they released.
Yeah.
Right. So if you think about like all businesses are, like at its best and core is a way to generate content. And if content can generate like, engagement, and engagement can generate sales and, loyalty and retention, like that's all it's about. So I think at some point along the road there, whatever it was, maybe something or a combination of, seeing different things, I started to see that if I had amazing content, like led with content, which, like me, like you have to lead with amazing content. And like all of our stuff was free, which was very different, from what it was back in the day. Sure. And, or like in the industry we're in. And so if we led with amazing content, truly helped, like all of the other stuff would backfill. And then what I learned in that process is just like, people will tell you exactly what they want. Like they'll tell you like, I wish I had this. I wish I had this. I wish I had this. And then that's where you build your products from.
I was just speaking last week. Was it last weekend? I don't know. I've been on the road for like a month, but I was speaking either last weekend or the weekend before. And I was trying to tell this audience, they were like, but how will anyone find me? How will anyone come to my thing? And I'm like, you will create content. And they're like, what content will I create? And I'm like, well, the first piece of content is your life. It's your story. It's a story. It's the story of why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you writing about stocks? Why are you writing about online business? Like that's the first story that you have to tell. And once that content's out there, people will be like, wow, tell us another story. It's just like kindergarten. Like if you tell a good story, they're going to ask you for the second one. And eventually that gives you the opportunity to stop and say, what would you like to tell you next? Right.
Sure.
And then they do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I think that's, I mean, that's, I know content is so easy. Like it's just answering questions. It's putting your own spin on things. It's taking a perspective. Like it's literally so easy to do. It's just people don't do it enough.
You're in a weird space too, like with the financial game has some different parameters around it. But like, do you take the side of making everybody happy versus being controversial, right? Like in your brand, like if in your blogs originally or now or whenever, like how do you, I think that's one of the great fears. People put their stuff out there and they're like, well, somebody's not going to like me. Well, it's kind of good when people don't like you because other people like you more. So like, how do you straddle that line when you're deciding what content to create of this is good, this is bad, this is too controversial, I need to stay away from it? Or is it a thing where it's like, hey, we're going to draw a line in the sand. Like I like this kind of trading versus this kind of trading. Like, how do you make that call?
So we actually, it was funny you bring this up, like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we actually did draw a line in the sand in that we decided that our blog, and we migrated stuff off of our blog that was, like one way and should have been someplace else. So we came up with something called like the handbook. So it's just like the trader's handbook. It's our goal at being the encyclopedia for investors and traders. And so our mandate internally, when we wrote this, and we have a team of guys that, head this up, and I write some, they write some. We stole a professor out of a university who taught finance and was a bond trader, and like that, they write it now, right? Sure. And our mandate for this was non-objective, right? Absolutely critical information that a trader would need to know that answers questions. Like that's it. Like non-objective way to define or answer questions. And actually that has been one of the biggest drivers of traffic that we've seen in the last year and a half, 2 years, that we started putting that out because there's such a need for the not subjective view. Not that there's not a space for that, and people obviously do good for that. It's we decided like that wasn't going to be our thing. Like our thing was not going to be, you have to do this and you have to do this and you have to do this. Our thing was going to be, hey, we're going to teach you all the ways that people do it and then let you choose. Like here's how you can do it, right? So that was one portion, which then leaves the blog open in my eyes now to be like a company blog for what we're doing. Like here's a cool, some cool research we did. Here's some new stuff we released. Here's a different take on this strategy or technique or way to do it, right? So that becomes now like a voice, the voice of the brand versus the content of the industry.
Did you feel like before maybe you throw it all on the blog, see what happens?
Threw everything into the blog. And what ended up happening was we got like, and again, like people will tell you just put enough stuff out there, they'll tell you like what's wrong with it. Clearly they'll tell you all the things.
For sure. You'll know every dot not dotted and every T not crossed. Yes.
You'll know everything, right? But we threw it out there and then we started, and we've gotten these emails for a long time. And then we finally like dug into a lot of them and, said, okay, maybe there's something here, but they would send emails like, hey, I like this, but I don't know where to find the next thing. Or like, this is disorganized, or how do I get all the questions, right? They started saying things like, how do I see everything about, or all the questions about this particular topic or that particular thing? And we sat back and we're like, well, we know where they are. Like, of course we know where they are. Like I know every inch of everything on the site. They're like, they don't know. And it's not easy. And we're definitely not making it easy for them. So how could we make it easy for them? How could we partition content and organize things so that it's consumable in the right order and they can backtrack or go forward? Little things like that, I think just goes so far.
That's why version 1.0 is the most important version. Like if you can get that out there, like when I see what Flip Lifestyle is now compared to I will never forget the first beta group when we got our first 20 people. We had an outline, bro, for a course. We didn't even have anything recorded. Like we were just outlining it. And when I look back at that outline now and I look back at those courses, like it was like the whole thing was basically like how to get an e-book on eJunkie or something. Like it was how to use a PayPal button, right? It was crazy, man. But like it was what we knew, and we knew people could do, right? We were doing some other things, but we didn't think I have a saying I always tell people to do what I did, don't do what I do. Because if you try to do what I do, you're not there yet, right? So do what I did. And that was what we did. But dude, as soon as we got in there, I have never guessed on anything else we've ever created. I got this from Dan Miller. He said, whenever you get the same question a third time. Stop everything and make a training for it, and you'll never have to do it again. Yeah. And when I that's what we've done the whole time. Just everything we have now in the blueprint is everything people have asked us over the years. And like now it's like you get into a meeting, you're like, has anybody asked anything new this week? No, not really.
We haven't covered, nothing we haven't covered. Yeah.
Nothing at all. When did you go to 2.0? Like when did you start getting into, like you started looking at what you were doing? Because it was content, coaching, teaching, learning, whatever you want to say it is, knowledge industry stuff, right? Then you got into tools. Like you started like creating tools for people. So like when what was that? Did that come from people asking for it, or was that someone's idea? Like how did version 2.0 of Option Alpha show up with the creating the software tools?
So everything that we do now, software, I mean, truthfully, is stuff that I feel like I like dreamt up first, and I knew I wanted something first. And now,
as a user, as a person,
like as a trader, and someone who invests. Now, of course, like I've heard other people say for years, like I wish I could do that, and then that makes me think like, well, yeah, I wish I could do that too, right? And then I go try to find it or try to, see what tools or resources are out there, and it eventually came to a head where it's like, if nothing's out there, the age-old adage, like if it's not there, like I'll build it myself, right? And that's what we did. Like we built the first software tool, which again, like looking back on it, like version 1.0, it did like very little, like 3 things that anybody could possibly do. We just built it as a tool and made it available, right? And it was super cheap, like, ridiculously cheap, but it was just a concept. It was just an idea, like, what if we do?
Will someone give me money for something? The greatest question in business. Try and see if they give you money.
I knew that people would give us money for it. Like I knew that it was valuable enough because it like solved a very particular problem. But what I didn't know is I didn't know the questions that would come after that. And the rabbit hole that I would find myself in where I was like, okay, like now I want to do like, feel confident, like, all right, I got this. Like, we build a software tool. So now I'm going to build another software tool. And now I'm going to take like, tackle the most challenging project in the entire world of trading for like software. So like, I think we've like, I've dug myself.
Hey guys, we made it up this hill. Can we get to the moon? Let's see what happens. Let's see if we can do this.
It was like, that's the leaps that you talk about. Like, it's like step 1 and then step 2. And then you're like, I think we should skip like step 2 to 95 and like just go to 100, and just, but look, it ultimately comes down to just like people wanting to solve problems. Now, like the software tool that we have now with auto trading, people didn't deliberately say, I want to auto trade. Right? Like that's not the question that we got. We didn't get hundreds of emails that say, I want to auto trade. Instead, we got all the surrounding things that led to a solution that was auto trading, which were things like, I don't know how to code. I wish I had more time to run this strategy. I don't have time during the day, or I can't find these things. Right? So I think it comes down to like actually listening to those people and the words that they're using, because you'll see like in our marketing now and like all over our site, like we don't use words that we would come up with, right? Like we use words like even our homepage right now has like a split test going of like different headlines, but like one of the versions we're testing is like stock and options trading doesn't have to be a full-time job. Nobody trades options full-time, but they act like it's a full-time job because they say it. They say, man, I love trading, but it's a full-time job. Now, is it there?
And the entrepreneur has to say, like you said, they're listening to them. You've got to look at all the symptoms and you got to hear them say, I don't want this to be a full-time job. And then you like, oh, wait a minute. How could we make it not a full-time job? And that's where you start building.
Yeah. I think, that point, So look, I think that in all reality, like my partner and like co-founder for the auto trading stuff, he taught me something really, really powerful. So like we were doing like early beta, like user interviews and everything. And people were like, I want this and I want that and I want this. And I would like hand it back to the team. I'd be like, guys, they want this, right? And they would say to me, they're like, they don't. They don't want that. They're just voicing the only thing they know is the next logical step. So I guess it's like the iPod, like the Apple iPod and like iPhone. Like nobody said, I want, or they probably all said to Apple, like, I want a CD that has more storage, right?
Right.
And if Apple listened, Apple would have built a CD that had more storage. But what Apple realized was like, no, you don't want a CD that has more storage. You just want more music in one place, right? So they built that. And I think that's what it comes to. I think great companies, and I hope we become a great company. I think great companies can really figure out like what people are trying to do and then give them or develop build that product that actually solves what they were trying to get at. Because then you'll hear things like, I didn't think of this, but this is what I needed, or I never knew I needed this. Then I think you're on the right track.
It's our last great leap happened probably, I don't know, maybe March of this year when we had a huge breakthrough. And it was kind of getting out there and just trying some things in the speaking world, like especially on the sales side. Like because we're doing, like, we have a team that goes out live now and does live events every weekend, and they sell things and they sell services, whatever. And there was a point where we were making progress every week and we were learning the industry and we were getting better. And then when we were listening to people and we kept hearing people say, well, I don't know if I have my idea. I don't know what my idea is going to be. I don't know what that's good for you, Shane. And that's good for these other 47 people you've showed me today. But what's my idea? And we kept leaning back into the, I would call it like more of a webinar type strategy of, okay, well, I just have to prove to them that they have an idea, right? So we started that segment of our presentation, kept getting longer. We kept experimenting with new language. And then what we were sitting around after one of our events. It was a good event, had a great event, good turnout. And a guy that works on my team named Sam, he looked over and he goes, people don't really want an idea. What they really want is an identity. That's what they're actually looking for. Like, they see Shane, the guy who does Flip Lifestyle. They see Jocelyn, the girl who did Elementary Librarian. They see Kirk, the dude who does the stock stuff. They don't see, oh, he had a brilliant idea where he was going to blog about options trading. They don't see that. They want the identity. And we were like, oh, that is true. And we started looking at it. And, we had all these things laid out, like the potential identities that people could have online. And we were like, well, what would be their identity that they want? And what we really came down to was like, well, wait a minute. It was me and Jocelyn. And me and Jocelyn were talking about this. And I was talking to it with Sam. And I was like, wait a minute. Who are we? Well, Jocelyn is not shy, but super introverted. Like, she needs time to get away from people after she's been around people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can we get more people? There's not enough people in this car right now. Yeah. Call up some of our friends. Right. And then, so I'm always trying to build communities. Jocelyn built this epic library of resources that you could download them, but you couldn't talk to her. Right. And then I was thinking about Sam, who brought this up, and like he had the way he was able to quit his job was not by building a big membership or anything. He just started a coaching program. And he's like, I like one-on-one, but it gets overwhelming in bigger settings. So I don't do that. And I was like, holy crap, that's the identity right there, man. It's like, are you creating something? Are you intimately building relationship, or are you leading a community? So we created this framework of, man, pretty much everybody is either, until you get to software, everybody's either selling courses, which resources, or coaching people one-on-one or in groups. There's some, depending on how extroverted you are, or you're like, I'm starting a movement and I'm starting a party and I'm going to have this huge following and social media and all this. And we just were like, man, we started interviewing our people. We started looking at all the people in our community. And I realized none of them cared about their idea once they got started. What do you do for a living? I'm a course creator. Oh, okay. Let me talk to somebody else. What do you do? I'm a coach. Oh, wow. That's amazing. What do you do? I'm like you, man. I build memberships and communities. And everyone I talked to, one out of probably 10 people in our community would throw out something like, I do freelance work, right? Because they were like, I didn't like the business stuff. And we realized, Jesus, they've never told us they were looking for an idea. They're looking for an identity. And once they put that cape on, they will move heaven and earth to become that thing. So now if it doesn't end in an ER, we don't even talk about it. Are you a podcaster? Are you a YouTuber? Like, if you don't end in an ER, we don't even talk. I don't care about your idea. Tell me your right? But it's like I think you have to have that 10,000 hours with your customer too, to kind of start. And like, that's a big level up, was where you go to where you're going right now. It's like the dots started connecting instead of just like seeing the dots.
That's what you see it. But I mean, that's even why you should be like in a bunch of groups or going to event if you don't know what that is right now, because you need to see all these perspectives at the same time.
Oh
if
yeah,
you,
it connects the dots faster because you get to see
it
other
connects the
people's
dots
collection
faster.
of dots.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because you can see like, oh my God, like everybody is talking about how this solved their problem or this is their, way that they set up their business. And so if you don't have that right now, then you got to go find it faster. Not that, I mean, you could find it by yourself and spend a lot of time doing it, but it certainly would happen faster if you reached out. Right.
I am a big, Brunson's got a saying, says work your way in or buy your way in.
Mhm.
I am all by my end now. If I have money sitting on the table, the first percentage of that money is buying into the room that I need to be in to do that thing, like sharpening the axe. And also like I say yes so much. Like not from a like a we say no to I say no to a lot of things on my calendar. My calendar gets exactly
Which
what I
is saying yes to something else. Right.
I say, yes, exactly. But I say yes to things like, and I get to hang out with Kirk for an hour today. Man, somebody called me. I got a guy called me or sent me a text last night, and I'm like, I really need to sit down with an hour with this guy. Aaron Walker was texting me the other day. He's like, I want to come up and fish. I'm like, we're going to make that happen, right? Because getting in the room with the people around you that will tell you not how to do something. People come into that, like me and you went on a trip last year with some guys, and none of us got on that boat thinking, I know what I'm getting out of this weekend.
I certainly didn't know what I was getting out of it.
You had no clue, or you didn't even know where we were going.
Clue. Me and Bo had no clue about what was going on.
Nothing, man. And you know what's funny is even though I've been on the boat a bunch of times, and it's like I go into it not knowing. All I do is show up with cigars and bourbon. That's it, man.
You have to because you got to be humble in that. Like, there's no way me or you or whoever has every life possible experience and everything figured out, right? And like, if you're humble enough to like recognize that, then you're like obviously open enough to be able to grow and take bits and pieces from what everyone does or doesn't do or how they run it, which is just the goal. Like the goal, and whether you're trading, investing, being a parent, a business owner, whatever, it's not to do it like somebody else. It's to take all the bits and pieces and do it your way, right?
Yeah. So how do you like the tool side, the software side? We've got some ideas percolating to the top. Because I think there's a problem in the industry, especially on the recurring revenue membership platforms that are out there, memberships and communities, which we do a lot more now, but it's like, that seems like an afterthought to me on like the ClickFunnels, the Kajabis, the whatever. No, even though they do them good, there's a lot to me that's just completely lacking in that space, but like, do you like that side? Do you like the software side? Because that requires you to do what a lot of people are also scared to do, is you got to leverage other people. Because I don't know about you, but I don't know how to code. I couldn't do Morse code, let alone code a software program. So like, how do you like that side right now that you've gotten into it? Because how long has it been now since you launched that tool?
So we started building it. I mean, it's been about 8 years that we've been building tools, like software tools.
I gotcha.
So like, since we like launched our software, about 2.5 years since we like really like launched it and started like putting people in there. But look, I think that software, like all things, like has its good days and bad days. Like, I will not be the one to be like, software is like the golden thing to everything. Like, it is a money pit of like investment. Like, you have to invest the time in it. You have to invest in the people. You've got to invest in the tech. The good thing is that I've learned, and I'm so thankful that like my business partner and our co-founders and our team like had experience doing this, is the thing with software is you have to build it from the ground up. Like, there is you can't cut and paste this thing together. And that,
or buy somebody's thing and just make it your thing. You can't just totally do that.
I mean, like
you can learn from it, but you got to know where it came from. You got to at least understand their path from zero.
So like software to me is like so here's a good analogy for like the times, right? Like, all these supply chains are all broken, right? So Ford can build entire trucks and then they sit in the parking lot because they don't have one chip. Right? One chip, they sit in the parking lot, and Ford can't do anything with them. So like, literally the giant has been brought down by a very small company that just couldn't make a chip. Like, that's it. And so your goal as a software developer, like what our goal as a software developer, is to not have anybody control any chips. Like, we literally had to build it from the ground up. Like, it would have been a lot faster, like 100%. It would have been like 2 years, a year top, not 5+ years of development. But like, if we did that, we would have been at the whim of somebody else for all these little components and chips in our stuff. Now that's the downside, right? Like the downside is it takes longer. The upside is now that we have all that, like we can move so much faster. Like
Sure.
our repetition of like new things and our ability to deliver to users who are like, hey, can we do this? And we're like, yep, now you can. Like, hey, can we do this? Give us 2 days. Yep, now you can. Like that speed, like really manifests itself. It's almost like compound interest. It really is. Like as an investor, like that's how people would know it. Like it starts slow and you don't feel like you're making progress, because we certainly didn't for years. And believe me, we heard about it. People are like, you've been working on this thing for, 5 damn years. And I'm like, I know.
Your customers
like,
will tell you when you're going too slow for them.
Yep. It's like, if it's not yesterday, it's too late. So, but then you get the benefit of the compound, that growth. And I think that's where it takes off. So
it's the scale on the backside of software. And also too, like,
I mean, look, it's on everything. I mean, like, even if you do content, you do courses or whatever, it's going to feel like for a long time, like, man, this is not the right thing. Like this should have blown up.
Yep.
But it's bricks. I mean, like you're built, you're putting together bricks and that's it. Just brick by brick.
Brick by brick, man. Yeah. And the scale thing, the retention is what always allures me to any software. Cause like I think about like things like, take ClickFunnels or Kajabi. Or even something like what you do, or like I even get a feel for this sometimes with our lesson plan stuff we still have, because once people get on that, they don't want it to go away. It's not that they don't want to pay for it. People don't want that to go away, because it's like trying to build a house without a hammer, and you've had a hammer for every other house you've built. Like when you get the tool that does change the game, like it's like, wow, I cannot do without this anymore.
As long as it becomes part of their habit. Like that's one thing that I learned that we didn't do well with initial tools. Not that we didn't sell them. It's just that the tools that we initially bought, like our first 2 products, like, scanning and back testing, like the original versions, they weren't a habitual thing. So like those tools could be used, absolutely annihilated. They could run a bunch of back tests and then they were done. And it was like, there was no ongoing need for something. Now that's our fault, not the user's fault. Like the user got exactly what they wanted. They got everything out of it. They used it, done. Right. But now it's
fine. That's what the product was at that time.
That's fine. That's what the product was. But now like our focus is like, one, how can we build a tool that like works in their daily routine, improves their daily routine, like is an ongoing resource for them. And if we can't do that consistently, then it's probably not something we're going to focus on.
Also too, like I love all my people I know, because when I need to have any inspiration, it's like a lot of people go to the bookstore or go out, but like I literally can just check my friends list now. It's like my Facebook friends list is pretty cool, man, and like you're doing what a lot of entrepreneurs say they're going to do. Like you're roaring ahead into uncharted space or whatever you want to call it. And you're kind of building something that is changing the game. Right. And like, even on the bad days, man, that's got to feel good to know that you're taking the chances to go do that, It
does. I message our team all the time, like, and we even say like now people, like we'll message each other in Slack and be like, can you believe like we can actually do this? Like, this is what we do. Like we can wake up and
we get to do this for a living.
Like literally like solve problems and whatever. And then, we get emails from customers and they're like, I was in the hospital and a trade happened and I didn't have to do, whatever. Like, that's cool. And I wouldn't change that for anything.
Actually, last year, you were right there when I was entering into this new thing we were doing. Like we were going into this, we were taking our whole brand into the speaking industry and into big stages. And like, I think we had only done one after the boat. I think we had done maybe
one or two. Yeah.
One or two max. And, I remember when we were talking to our partners and we were sitting down to make the deal. And I remember thinking, man, the guy that came to me and started the whole big stage event, he was one of those guys that was like, this is a totally different industry. This guy's done things. I needed to introduce you guys because you all get along really good, because he did a software play at one time and it had to exit and all this stuff. But but I thought to myself, I was like, man, to level up, I'm going to have to change some things. Like, my life since 2013, since September 27th, 2013, my life's been really crazy at that point. I've been working like 3 hours a day, 3 or 4 hours a week, like recording podcasts and like doing all this crazy stuff. Like, right. And I knew that was like, you know what, I'm going to have to roll up my sleeves and we're going to have to get to work here. And one of the things I did, I sat down with Isaac and Anna Joe and I said, hey guys, mom and dad, we have decided that we would really love to go to the next level. But we are going to have to change some things in our life. We're going to be working a little more. We're going to be building some new things. There's going to be a lot of new people coming into our team, and that's going to require dad's attention and mom's attention. And there's going to be times I'm out training people right now. I'm on the road to get me off the road forever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm training these. I got 22 salespeople right now. I'm training and speakers and all this stuff. And I said it's going to change things around here. And we had this really long discussion about how that was going to affect our family, like good and bad. We pro'd and conned it. I didn't sugarcoat it like it was awesome. You know what I mean? But when you make the call, like to go to the next level, like you gotta change, and you got to spend more time on it, especially in the front end. So how have you managed that, man? Like, how have you managed the last few years? I know you've put so much work into this and your heart and your soul, and like, how do you balance that out, man, when you're trying to do big things?
I think it becomes like, earlier you talked about like, finding the that you are. And like my desire is I like to do the education. I like to do the training. I like to put together the content stuff. But I've had to learn that like that is not the that like my company needs at this moment, So for me, it was a change where, yes, I could be part of that stuff. And I still do a lot. Like I still do the podcast and I still do stuff, but like, you have to grow, I think, as an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Like you have to grow and realize like at different stages, your company may need different things. And I think that was the hardest part. It's like, for me, so like, even if you like hear me talk about it now, like the most exciting things for me are like hearing what people are doing. The least exciting things are all the, like building the software stacks and doing compliance and HR and all the stuff that goes into that. Like that's the least exciting stuff, but it's necessity for the most exciting thing. So I think over the, like years, it's just been a shift of like, this is who like my company, our users, our traders need me to be in order for us to be successful so that they're successful. And which means that I can't just like hang out and play all day, like right. I have to do some things that I didn't sign up originally to do, but are necessary to do the next thing, right? It's like, I don't know, like going to the gym, working out. Like I didn't sign up, like I don't want to be physically fit for running. Like I could care less. Like I hate running, like absolutely hate running. But I know running or some sort of cardio is like good for the whole body. So like right. You make that so you can get
magnifier. You got to do it.
You got to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah. So, your kids are a little younger than mine, aren't they? Are they a little bit younger?
Yeah, 864. Yeah.
That's right. You're a little behind me. Here's what I've found. So here's some wisdom from the future that I got from another dude from Wisdom in the Future. Okay.
Yep.
So as we started doing this, my kids are now 11 and 13. So they're really in that preteen weirdness, and they've had a weird life. Our kids have had weird lives, being not only the children of entrepreneurs, but people who've done a couple things in their life. And so like we've been together so much. When we had this conversation, like Isaac and Anna were just like, that's cool, Dad. That's cool. It might be good for us to be apart.
They're like, and, you know what? Dude, I could spend some less time with you. Yeah.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, at this last year, our family has gotten closer, like from parent and kid side, especially because when you leave and you come back, man, it's like they just run to the door and they're like not taking it for granted, and they're seeing things and they're asking things. And then, we've gotten them, we've allowed them to view more what we're doing. Like we took them to one of the big stage events.
Sure.
We took them to one of the smaller events. So yeah, man, I think actually entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs who came from the working world, like I came from the 9-to-5 teaching space. We've done our 9-to-5 stints, right? And like when you come to that, it's like now we get all that freedom back, and we're like, I'm going to spend every minute with every day and read the Bible cover to cover and high five you every time you do anything good, right? Like you get that side, and we get addicted to that, and then we feel guilty if we want to go to the next level. But really, a little bit of separation there has allowed my kids to become more independent, and they love it more, and they don't take it for granted anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with our kids too. I mean, like you have to be like, there's no. One of my buddies, Syed, who is a very successful guy, has a lot of software companies. Like, truly look up to this guy. And I remember sitting in the airport one day. We were flying back from an event. He was flying out the same time I did, and he was basically talking about his business. And he's like, I really will never get rid of what I do, because my son needs to see me do something. Like he can't grow up his entire life and not see that his dad works hard and that he, cares and has people that, he employs and all that. So, and that was like really powerful to me. It's like, man, I want my kids to see, that like, hey, listen, dad's got to go into the office because I've got very important meetings and calls today, which means that I can't be here, but this is what I'm doing. Right. And I think it's important that they see it. And you don't just like, even now, if I could, like, say screw all this and whatever and just go home and chill and hang out, like I would want to do something, and I wouldn't want them to see me just vegging on the couch watching Stranger Things all day.
Hey, listen, man, sometimes you got to watch Stranger Things.
Just in the mornings.
Dude, well, I'll tell you what, I've probably known you as long as I've known anybody since I've been online. And dude, you're a great entrepreneur. You're a great husband. You're a great father. And man, I just respect you so much. And I love you guys to death and appreciate you guys. And I just love watching what you do out on the internet, man. So tell everybody where they can learn more about what you do over on the internet.
Sounds good, man. Likewise, back to you, buddy. It's always good hanging out with you. And hanging out with you on the boat was like for days was so good, so fun. We're over at optionalpha.com. You can check us out there. It's everywhere online, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere at Option Alpha. That's it.
All right, guys, that wraps up my interview with Kirk Du Plessis. Man, what a great guy to talk to. I could really sit and talk to him for hours at a time. I've actually done it. We went on a trip last year. We were on a boat out on a lake for 4 straight days, just talking for hours on end about everything under the sun. And I'm so thankful he came on the podcast today to share his knowledge, share his wisdom on how to be an entrepreneur. He puts the ER in entrepreneur. That is his identity. And that's what we want for you and your identity too. That's why we bring you these amazing interviews with such incredible people so that you can get inspired. You can see that example of success and you've got something that you can go aim for too. Hey, if you love the Shane Sam Show every single week, could you do us a big favor? Go leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. I read every single one of those podcast reviews, and I cannot wait to read yours. Heck, if you even have a question for me that you want to ask, or you have a guest that you want me to go out and try to interview, put that in there as well. I'll take a look at it. If I can answer your question, I might do it right here on air, or maybe I can get that guest you've been looking forward to hearing from on the Shane Sam Show. And if you thought this was a good episode, if you like this episode with Kirk, hey, give it a share on social media. Make sure you tag me. Make sure you tag Kirk over at Option Alpha. And don't be afraid to copy the link to this podcast and send it straight to a friend. That's all the time I have this week for the Shane Sam Show. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. Until you hear my voice again, do this. Get out there, take action, pick your stone up, cast it out upon the waters, and cause many ripples. I'll see you then.